My name is Celeste Harmon. I am 34 years old. And on my 18th birthday, my parents sat me down at the dining room table and slid a worn, empty duffel bag across to me. My brother Ethan received a $200,000 trust fund when he turned 18. A foundation, a head start. I got 6 words from my father. Go build something worth having. I laughed, assuming he was being dramatic. He was not. 16 years later, my brother's trust fund was completely gone. Every cent. And I had built something he did not have. Something no amount of money could have handed him. When they discovered what it was, my mother called me for the first time in years. Not to say she was sorry. What she asked me to do next, I am still making sense of it. Welcome back to Stillwater Stories, where real family tension meets quiet resilience. If you have ever been the steady one in a family that confused your self-sufficiency with not needing love, this story is going to reach right into your chest. Leave a comment below, make sure you subscribe, and stay until the very end because what my parents eventually needed from me, they never saw coming. The Harmon house sat on a shaded street in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. 4 bedrooms, gray brick. A side porch my father repainted every other summer like it was written into the calendar. My father Raymond was a civil engineer, methodical and deliberate, the kind of man who kept a maintenance log for every appliance and believed any problem could be solved with enough preparation. My mother Sandra was warmer in surface ways, softer spoken, more expressive. But in one thing, she and Raymond were identical. They both believed Ethan was the one who needed protecting. Ethan turned 18 2 years before I did. His birthday filled our backyard. String lights, a tiered cake from the bakery downtown, nearly 40 guests. Raymond stood beside the grill and handed Ethan a sealed envelope. Inside was a certified check for $200,000. This is your foundation, son, he said. His voice broke slightly at the end. Sandra covered her face with both hands and cried the way people cry when they have rehearsed the moment in their heads. Ethan smiled. He did not open the envelope right away. He did not have to. He already knew exactly what was in it. 2 years later I turned 18. No string lights, no backyard crowd. Just the 4 of us at the dining room table with reheated chicken and a salad nobody finished. Raymond set the old canvas duffel bag in front of my plate. Heavy stitching, frayed zipper pull. The kind of bag you find folded at the bottom of a thrift store bin for $8. Go build something worth having, Celeste. I looked at my mother. She found something on the tablecloth to study. I looked at Ethan. He was arranging his fork and knife with unusual concentration. I laughed. A short involuntary sound that surprised even me. Because what else comes out when your father hands you a carry-on bag instead of a future? They did not laugh back. And the silence confirmed everything. This was not a joke. This was a declaration. Raymond found me on the back steps an hour later. I was sitting with the bag across my lap, holding the strap like it might float away. You are angry, he said. It was not a question. You gave Ethan $200,000. You gave me a duffel bag. He lowered himself beside me. He smelled like cedar and machine grease, the particular combination that had always meant father to me. Ethan needs structure underneath him, he said. A cushion. You, though, he looked at me, you will make your own ground. That is not the same as helping me stand, Dad. He did not respond. He never met the hard questions head on. Inside, Sandra was wiping the stovetop. When I came back in, she pressed a dish towel between her hands and said, Your father sees things in you he does not see in Ethan. He was trying to compliment you. Compliment. That was the framing. As though the canvas bag was a ribbon, not a verdict. My Aunt Vera, Sandra's older sister, caught me in the hallway before I went upstairs. She smelled like hand cream and black tea. This is not right, she said low. And your mother knows it. Then why is she going along with it? Vera glanced toward the kitchen. Because it is easier to shelter the one who bends than the one who holds. Later that week, Vera told me that Ethan had known about the trust fund for almost a year. He and Sandra had already sketched out how to spend the first portion. A lease on a new BMW and a deposit on an apartment downtown. My father did not resent me. That would have been simpler. He genuinely believed I needed nothing. And that was harder to carry because it meant he had never looked closely enough to find out otherwise. I packed the canvas duffel on a Sunday morning in September. It did not take long. 2 pairs of jeans for sweaters, a raincoat from a consignment shop, a toiletry bag held shut with a rubber band. Everything I owned fit inside a bag worth less than Ethan's birthday dinner. Penn State had offered me a partial academic scholarship. The remainder I would earn. 3 jobs, the campus research library on weekdays, a diner 2 evenings a week, and private tutoring for high school students on weekends. $18 an hour averaged across all 3. My father drove me to campus 2 hours on Route 30. He talked about windshield wiper replacement and checking tire treads the whole way because that was his particular dialect of caring. When he pulled up to the residence hall, he left the engine running. "You are going to land well, Celeste." "I know, Dad." He pulled back into traffic. I stood on the sidewalk holding the duffel in one hand and a grocery bag of instant oatmeal in the other. My suite mate's family was carrying a mini refrigerator up the stairs, all 3 of them laughing about the instructions. Nobody called to check on me that first week. Not Raymond. Not Sandra. Ethan sent a text message. "Go get it," followed by a thumbs up emoji. Nothing else. No follow-up. No questions about my roommate or my classes or whether I had figured out where the dining hall was. I called home that Wednesday around 8. Sandra picked up on the 3rd ring. "Oh, Celeste, 1 second. Ethan, come tell your sister about the apartment." Ethan got on the phone and described his new downtown unit for 12 minutes. Exposed brick, tall ceilings, a rooftop the building shared. He did not ask a single question. When he handed the phone back to Sandra, she said, "Are you sleeping enough?" And then before I could answer, I should go. Ethan needs help setting up his internet. I set my phone on the desk and looked at the cinderblock wall across from my bed for a long time. That night I slid the duffel bag under the bed frame. It fit exactly, as though that gap had always been meant for it. As though it was designed to live beneath things. That bag would follow me for 16 years, through 5 apartments, 3 cities, law school, and a marriage. I never replaced it. Not because I forgot. Because I needed to remember what starting from nothing felt like. College was 2 parallel tracks. On mine, alarm at 5 every morning, library shift until 9, classes until 3, diner until closing, tutoring every Saturday. I ate oatmeal 4 mornings a week and allowed myself a burrito bowl on Sundays. My GPA held at 3.9 because rest was something I rationed like the last bar of signal in a dead zone. On Ethan's track, social media narrated everything. Skiing in Colorado in February, beach rentals in July, restaurant tabs photographed like trophies, captions long on confidence and short on self-awareness. Living fully, trust fund and grateful. There was one photo that stayed with me. Ethan on a rented catamaran off the Carolina coast, sunglasses, a cold drink, Raymond and Sandra on either side of him, relaxed and laughing. The caption said, "Nothing beats time with family who always shows up." Time with family. And I was not there. Not included, not mentioned in the replies. The trust fund was $200,000 when Ethan turned 18. By the time he was 20, it had fallen to $130,000. $70,000 in 2 years. Ski trips, a lease on furniture he did not own, a photography hobby that required expensive equipment, a personal chef class at $110 a session. I knew the breakdown because Vera told me, not as gossip, but because she was concerned. "Your parents are staying quiet," Vera said during one of our calls. "Raymond thinks Ethan will find his footing. Sandra thinks spending teaches him confidence." Confidence, I repeated from my dorm bed, wearing a second-hand sweatshirt. Right. I scrolled past a photo of Ethan in a mountain town at golden hour. A craft cocktail, a flannel shirt, a sunset behind him. Then I closed the app and returned to my textbook. Every dollar he spent on a curated weekend, I added back through tutoring sessions that ran past midnight. The exchange rate was not fair. But I had stopped measuring for fair the night my father slid a canvas bag across the table instead of a future. Fair was a concept for families who loved their children without keeping score. Mine loved conveniently. I was admitted to Temple University Beasley School of Law on a partial scholarship and enough student loans to paper an entire hallway. Law school was more demanding than undergrad, not the coursework specifically, but the quiet. Everyone around me had parents who called on Sunday evenings, who left care packages outside dorm doors, who sat in the back rows of practice arguments with their phones raised and their faces full of pride. My phone stayed quiet. In my second year, I accepted a summer placement at a small Philadelphia firm focused on elder law, estate planning, guardianship, Medicaid eligibility, advanced directives. The unglamorous wing of the legal world. The one that smells like institutional carpeting and filing boxes. My first case involved a 74-year-old man named Howard, whose daughter had been withdrawing money from his joint savings account for 2.5 years. She held power of attorney and had used it to remove $91,000, while he sat in a memory care unit wondering why his newspaper subscription had been canceled. I read the transaction records. I traced the pattern. I sat in a courtroom and watched a judge strip the daughter of her fiduciary authority and appoint an independent administrator. Walking to my car after the hearing, I paused in the parking garage and thought about my own parents. Did they have a will? A power of attorney? A healthcare directive? Had Raymond, the man who scheduled furnace inspections 2 months in advance, ever scheduled the one appointment nobody wants to make? I called Sandra that evening. Mom, does Dad have an estate plan in place? A long silence, then sharp. Why would you be asking that? Are you waiting for something to happen to us? She ended the call. 41 seconds total. I looked at my phone and thought, this is exactly how it starts. When families avoid the paperwork, someone else eventually has to do it under pressure. I spent that summer helping strangers untangle exactly the kind of mess my family was quietly assembling. Graduation day, May, warm enough for shirt sleeves. Marcus, my partner by then, a high school art teacher with a steady disposition and a talent for saying the right thing by saying nothing at all, sat in the 4th row. Aunt Vera sat beside him wearing a coral blazer she had purchased specifically for today. 2 chairs down from her sat empty. I had mailed the invitations 10 weeks in advance, in ivory envelopes with wax seals because I wanted it to feel significant. Raymond did not reply. Sandra sent a text 4 days before. Ethan has a work thing I promised I would help with. You understand. Ethan texted the morning of. Congrats. Mom says she is proud. Could not get away. Could not get away. My mother could not manufacture a more convincing excuse. I crossed the stage, shook the dean's hand, smiled for the photographer. Vera put 2 fingers in her mouth and whistled. Marcus was on his feet before the applause caught up. Those were my people. 2 of them. I passed the bar that November and joined a mid-sized elder law firm in Philadelphia called Brennan & Associates. For attorneys, 2 paralegals, a waiting area with potted ferns and genuine urgency. 18 months later, Ethan launched his venture. Compass Market, a specialty grocery concept in a mixed-use development in Harrisburg, funded by the last $50,000 from his trust fund and a $90,000 small business loan that Raymond and Sandra co-signed. He sent me an invitation to the opening weekend. I was in depositions. Sandra called that same evening. You cannot show up for your brother once. You could not even come to his opening after he missed nothing of yours. The line went still. Then you never needed us there anyway, Celeste. You have never needed anyone. She did not call back. 5 years. 1,825 days of silence. And then my phone rang. 5 years is a long time to live as an afterthought. I did not vanish. I did not change my number or relocate without a trace. I simply stopped reaching toward people who were already walking in another direction. In those 5 years I made associate partner at Brennan & Associates. Marcus and I married at Morris Arboretum in October. 28 guests, a string quartet, and a cake from a Germantown bakery that used honey buttercream. We bought a row house in Chestnut Hill with a green front door and a back garden barely large enough for a table and 2 chairs. I grew herbs every spring. On the other side of those years, Ethan's market lasted 14 months. Artisan olive oils and imported grains in a strip between a dry cleaner and a smoothie bar did not generate the revenue his projections had promised. The trust fund was gone. The $90,000 loan fell behind. Raymond and Sandra, who had co-signed, began pulling from their retirement accounts to cover the payments. Ethan moved back to Lancaster and rented a room from a college friend. He picked up freelance graphic design work and helped a neighbor with landscaping on weekends. Vera kept me informed, not as gossip, as concern. Your father is having trouble with his words, she texted one April. He started 3 sentences at dinner and could not finish any of them. Your mother is pretending everything is fine, she said in November. She will not talk about money. She will not talk about you. He did not recognize Ethan at Christmas dinner. She told me in January. I set the phone face down on my desk and sat very still for a while. I did not call. Not because I did not feel it. Because every time I picked up the phone, I heard Sandra's voice. You never needed anyone. And I would set it back down. In 5 years I had built a career. Ethan had built debt. And my parents had built no plan at all. No will, no trust, no directive. The irony would have been almost poetic if it had not kept me awake some nights. Marcus asked me once on a Saturday afternoon while we were sanding the baseboards in the guest room, and the radio was on low, whether I still thought about them. I think about the version of them I wanted, I said. The ones who would have come to graduation. The ones who would have either split things evenly or at least had the conversation about why they did not. I grieve parents I never actually had. He did not say anything further. He handed me the sandpaper and kept working. That was Marcus. He understood that certain things do not need solving. They need someone to sit beside them. I kept the canvas duffel on the top shelf of our bedroom closet. Sometimes when I was reaching for something else, my hand would brush it. It sat there like evidence from another chapter. Proof that a girl once walked out of a house carrying everything she owned and did not stop moving. Except I did look back. I just never let anyone watch me do it. It was a Wednesday morning in October, 9:10. I know the time because I was reviewing a client deposition transcript and billing in 6-minute increments when my phone lit up against the desk edge. The screen showed Mom. I let it ring 4 times. My paralegal glanced up. I answered on the 5th. Celeste. Her voice was thinner than I remembered, like something had been worn out of it. Mom. I kept my tone level. She asked how things were. Mentioned the weather in Lancaster. Made a remark about the leaves changing. 40 seconds of small talk from a woman who had not spoken to me in 5 years. Then she cleared her throat. Your father has been diagnosed. Early stage Alzheimer's. He is 61. The room did not spin. It just shifted slightly the way a chair slides an inch when you do not expect it. I gripped the edge of my desk. When did you find out? 7 months ago. 7 months. 210 days. Raymond had been losing ground for 7 months and no one had told me. 7 months ago and you are calling now. We did not want to add to your plate. I closed my eyes. Classic Sandra logic. Framing my exclusion as consideration. She had not kept me out to protect me. She had kept me out because calling me meant saying out loud that she needed me. How far along is he? He has clear days and difficult ones. Some mornings he is completely himself. Some days he thinks he is still at the engineering firm. Does he recognize you consistently? A pause that stretched longer than it should have. Most of the time. Does he recognize Ethan? An even longer pause. He has not known Ethan for about 2 months. And then she said it. The thing I had been waiting nearly 17 years to hear. Not I am sorry. Not I was wrong. We need your help, Celeste. I shifted into attorney mode the way you merge onto a highway. Smooth, automatic, no hesitation required. Does Dad have a durable power of attorney? A what? A legal document that authorizes someone else to handle his financial decisions when he no longer can. I do not think we ever did that. A healthcare directive? A document outlining his medical preferences in the event he is incapacitated. Celeste, I do not know what half of those words mean. A will. Your father kept saying he would get around to it. I pulled a yellow legal pad from my drawer and started writing. Every answer was another structural failure. What about the house? A silence that had texture. We refinanced against it 2 years ago. I set my pen down. A cash-out refinance meant they had converted equity into debt. The house Raymond had paid off years ahead of schedule. The one he had treated like an achievement had been leveraged back into a liability. Why? Ethan's loan. The one we co-signed. The payments became too much after the business closed. So the $200,000 trust fund was gone. The $90,000 co-sign debt was being serviced with the family home's equity. And Raymond, who had planned everything from furnace schedules to retirement contributions, had never once planned for the thing that could undo all of it. Mom, you need an elder law attorney. I know. That is why I am calling you. Ethan said you could figure it out. You have been doing this kind of work for years. I leaned back in my chair and counted silently to 5. My mother talked about legal planning the way someone talks about a diagnosis they have been avoiding. Naming it makes it real. The tragedy was that the reality was already fully formed and standing in their living room. 2 days later, Thursday evening, I was making soup when my phone showed a number I had not seen in years. Ethan. No greeting. He was already talking before I finished answering. So Mom filled you in on Dad. Here is the thing, we need you to come sort through all the legal paperwork. I would handle it, but I honestly do not understand any of it. I turned the burner off. You could find an attorney and hire them. With what exactly? The store took everything and Mom and Dad drained savings covering my loan payments. I let that settle. He had said it without any particular weight, the way you describe a traffic delay. As though the financial erosion of two aging parents was incidental, something that had simply occurred. So you want me to do this for free? We are family, Celeste. That is what family does. Family. The word landed on my kitchen counter between us like a dropped plate. Marcus looked up from grating at the table. He could hear Ethan's voice from 4 feet away. He raised his eyebrows once. Family, I said carefully. Is that what we are? Immediately defensive. Do not make this into something. You are the one who went quiet for 5 years. I did not go quiet. I stopped sending messages into a void. Can you help or not? Then, almost as an afterthought, I have been overseeing Dad's accounts since the diagnosis. Bill payments, pharmacy runs, that kind of thing. My attorney instincts caught that sentence the way a smoke detector catches an ember. Overseeing his accounts. Anyone who works in elder law hears that phrase and starts asking follow-up questions immediately. Overseeing how? Just managing the day-to-day. I told him I would think it over. I ended the call and looked at Marcus. I need to go home. I sat at my desk that night and thought through every family I had helped over the years. Families shredded by exactly this. No structure, no documentation, no conversation. Just assumptions layered on assumptions until something collapsed. I had spent a decade learning to rebuild what neglect had undone. Now it was my own family's turn. If you have ever been the capable one when everyone else loses their footing, you already know what that moment feels like. Hit subscribe. The box arrived on a Thursday. UPS brown packing tape, no return address. Just the initials CH written in my mother's handwriting across the top with a wide marker. No letter inside, no note. Just a pale blue sticky note pressed to the first folder. I do not know where to begin. I carried it to the dining room table. Marcus cleared space. We sat across from each other, and I opened the box the way you open something you know will change the texture of your afternoon. Bank statements first. Checking balance for $112. Savings account closed. A savings account Raymond had maintained at $18,000 for over 2 decades. Drained. Refinancing documents. The Lancaster house appraised at $295,000, currently leveraged at $215,000. $80,000 in remaining equity if the market held steady. Co-signed business loan through Community Capital Bank. $90,000. 5 months behind. 3 collection letters with red borders. 2 marked final notice. Medical bills totaling $47,000. Neurologist visits, diagnostic imaging, a full cognitive assessment, a specialist referral. Raymond had taken early retirement at 59, and his employer coverage had lapsed. There was a gap of nearly a year before Medicare eligibility. No supplemental policy had been purchased in the interim. And then the credit card statements. 2 cards. Combined balance $31,000. I pulled them toward me and scanned the transactions slowly, the way I do with client records. Anthropology $94. Harrisburg. Williams-Sonoma $178. Harrisburg. Food delivery apps for 5-6 times a week. A subscription wine service. A Pilates studio membership at a place in the Harrisburg Arts District. Harrisburg. My parents lived in Lancaster. Marcus leaned over my shoulder. Those are not your parents' charges, are they? No. I set the statement down. Someone had been using my father's credit card account. And it was not my father. I sat at that table long after Marcus went to bed. The document spread in front of me. The sticky note on top. I do not know where to begin. The world is your trust fund, my father had told me. Turns out his world had no safety net at all. I called Sandra the next morning at 8. I am coming this weekend. I need to see everything directly. She exhaled. He sound of someone who had been holding their breath and did not quite know what came next. Should I let Ethan know you are coming? Not yet. That afternoon, Marcus and I sat at the table where the documents still lay. "Are you sure about this?" he said. "My father cannot advocate for himself right now. Somebody has to. That is what I have spent 10 years doing." He nodded. He did not argue. Marcus was the kind of person who understood that certain choices are not decisions. They are simply the only available direction. I packed my work bag that evening. Not the duffel. The bag. Black leather, structured. A gift from Vera at Bar Passage with my initials pressed into the front flap. Inside, a fresh legal pad, 2 pens, a compact scanner, and a checklist I had refined through more than 100 client cases. Durable power of attorney, healthcare directive, Medicaid planning documents, asset inventory, creditor communication log. The checklist fit on a single printed page. One page that could protect an entire life if someone used it in time. Raymond had never touched one. I set the work bag near the front door. Beside it, on the closet shelf visible through the open door, sat the old canvas duffel. I had not opened it in years. It just lived there, patient and unchanged. I did not pack the duffel. I packed the work bag, because I was not going home as a daughter. I was going home as the only person in that family capable of reading a financial statement without looking away. 2 hours on Route 30. The same stretch Raymond had driven me along when I was 18. Same flat Pennsylvania farmland. Same rest stop where he had once bought me a gas station tea and explained the importance of rotating tires. I turned onto the familiar street at 11:40 in the morning. The house looked worn. Paint pulling away from the window frames, a garden bed grown over, the front step cracked down the center. Sandra opened the door before I reached it. She looked as though several years had been added in a short span of time. Her hair was silver at the roots, her cardigan too large, her posture carrying the particular exhaustion of someone who had been managing alone for too long. She hugged me. Brief, stiff, the kind of embrace you give when you owe someone something you cannot calculate. I let her. I did not pull away. "He is in the den," she said. Raymond was in an armchair near the window, a blanket across his lap, a documentary playing on low volume. He wore dark trousers and a button-down shirt pressed, because Sandra still ironed his clothes. He turned when I walked in. "Are you the woman from the agency?" I stopped, gripped the strap of my bag. "No, Dad. I am Celeste." He studied my face with gentle curiosity, the way you look at someone familiar you cannot quite place. "That is a good name. I have a daughter named Celeste. She is in college, I think." He thought I was still 18. Somewhere inside him, I was still the girl with the duffel bag standing in the driveway. The cedar and machine grease scent reached me then. Same. Unchanged across all these years. The smell was exactly as I had always known it. Everything it used to signify had shifted. I sat with Sandra in the kitchen. Same chairs, same table. 16 years later, and this room had barely moved. I laid the contents of the box across the surface, organized into sections. Accounts left, property center, medical right, credit cards far right. "Walk me through it," I said. In attorney mode. No will, no power of attorney, no healthcare directive, no life insurance. Raymond had let the policy expire years ago. No long-term care policy. The refinancing was costing nearly $400 a month in interest. The co-signed loan was 5 months delinquent, and Community Capital had sent a demand letter. I documented it all, column after column of absence. Then I looked at her. If Dad ever needs residential memory care, Medicaid will examine every financial transaction and transfer from the past 5 years. She had not heard this before. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means the $200,000 you gave Ethan falls outside that window. It was 17 years ago. But the co-signed loan from 2 years ago falls inside it. Medicaid may classify it as a disqualifying transfer." "I do not understand what you are saying." "What I am saying is that the money you gave Ethan to protect him may complicate whether your husband qualifies for Medicaid coverage. The safety net you built for your son could weaken the one you need for yourself." Sandra looked at the table. Her hands were trembling. "You never needed us, Celeste," she said, barely above a whisper. "Ethan needed us." I set my pen down and looked across 16 years of silence and a table covered in paper. "Mom, look at all of this. Look at these numbers. You both needed me. You just did not know it yet." That afternoon, I asked Sandra for Raymond's online account access. She found the login on a sticky note inside his desk, written in his handwriting from the years before his handwriting changed. I opened the statements on my laptop. 8 months of transactions, $31,000 in charges. Anthropology. Harrisburg. A kitchenware shop. Harrisburg. Food delivery. 7 times in 1 week. A wine club. A Pilates studio. Mom, I said, still looking at the screen. Does Dad shop in Harrisburg? He has not driven in almost a year. Does Ethan have access to this account? A long pause. The kind that answers you before the words arrive. He was supposed to use it for groceries when he came up to help. Mom, Ethan has charged $31,000 to Dad's account in 8 months. None of it is groceries. None of it relates to Dad's care. Sandra stood up, sat back down. Her hands found the back of a chair. He said it was temporary. He was going to pay it back. This is not borrowing, Mom. Under Pennsylvania law, this is financial exploitation of a protected adult. Dad has an Alzheimer's diagnosis. He cannot consent to these transactions. Ethan was authorized for the purpose of caregiving. He used that access to fund his own expenses. Sandra began to cry. But here is the part that will sit with me the longest. She did not cry for Raymond. She did not cry for the $31,000. She did not cry for the fact that her husband's cognition was disappearing and his finances were following right behind. She cried for Ethan. Please do not report him. He is your brother. I looked at my mother, the woman who had given one child everything and handed the other a canvas bag. He is the brother who received $200,000 and still could not stop. I spent the rest of that weekend at the kitchen table. Marcus texted Saturday afternoon. How is it? I replied, come with your grading. I will be here for a while. I drafted the durable power of attorney first, named Sandra as primary agent and myself as secondary, to serve only if Sandra could not or chose not to. I structured it as a springing power, activated by physician certification of incapacity, clearer defensible than the healthcare directive. I sat with Sandra and asked the questions families avoid. Resuscitation preferences. Feeding tube, ventilator, palliative care. She wept through most of them. I wrote her answers in careful print. Next, I contacted Raymond's credit card companies. Removed Ethan as an authorized user on both accounts. Enabled transaction alerts on Sandra's phone. Set a verification requirement for any charge above $75. Then I drafted the irrevocable trust. I let the phrase sit in the air before continuing. By transferring the Lancaster house into the trust now, while Raymond still had intervals of clarity and could sign before a notary, we could shield it from Medicaid estate recovery down the line. If he ever required memory care placement, which statistically was likely, the state could not reclaim the property. The house would survive even when the finances around it did not. I called Community Capital about the delinquent co-signed loan, explained the circumstances. Primary borrower's business failed. Co-signers are elderly. One has a recent cognitive diagnosis. The representative transferred me twice before I reached a restructuring specialist. I negotiated a 5-month forbearance and a revised repayment schedule at reduced interest. 52 minutes on hold. Every second was worth it. When I set the phone down, Sandra was standing in the kitchen doorway watching me. You know exactly what to do, she said. How? Because I spent a decade learning to protect people whose families had not protected them. She flinched. A small involuntary recoil. She opened her mouth, thought better of it, and walked back toward the den. I did not say it to wound her. But honesty has weight and she felt all of it. Ethan arrived Sunday afternoon without any advance notice. His car rolled into the driveway at 2. While I was reviewing Medicaid eligibility documentation at the kitchen table. He came through the front door, saw my bag open on the chair, saw the files spread across every surface and went still. What is all this supposed to be? Estate planning documents. The ones your parents should have had for years. He picked up a paper from the nearest stack. The credit card account closure notice, with his name underlined. You closed my access. Dad's account. The one Dad can no longer manage or consent to sharing. Ethan put the paper down. His expression shifted the way weather shifts before a system moves in. You have been gone for 5 years and now you are here making unilateral decisions. No one made me. I recognized a situation that required action and I took it. You always thought you were operating on a higher level than the rest of us. No, I thought I deserved the same opportunity you had. And I ended up being the one who actually did something with it. He stepped forward. You have no idea what it has been like here. Watching Dad get worse. Helping Mom with everything while you were in Philadelphia building your polished little life and acting like we did not exist. Helping with everything, I repeated. Is that what $31,000 at furniture stores and delivery apps is called? He went pale. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. I had the statements printed. Every charge, every location, every date. All Harrisburg. All on his accounts. He grabbed his keys from the counter. You are reading this completely wrong. I am reading the statements exactly as they appear. He pushed through the front door hard enough that the framed photos in the hallway knocked sideways. Raymond stirred in the den. What is going on? He said softly. I do not like loud. Through the front window, I watched Ethan sit in his car for a long time before reversing out. His hands on the wheel were shaking. Vera called that evening. Her tone had the particular quality of someone who had been near a phone all day expecting it to ring. I heard Ethan stormed off. Left before I could finish explaining the power of attorney documents. Celeste. Vera paused. You know he is going to make this complicated at the holidays. The holidays? Your mother asked me to ask you because she cannot bring herself to ask directly. To what? Christmas. Immediate family. Fill me the kids. Your mother wants it to feel like something that has not broken. Everything has broken. I know. But Sandra needs to sign the documents with witnesses present. Vera understood what I needed without a diagram. She was sharper than most people accounted for. If Ethan challenges the power of attorney later, I need witnesses who observed Mom sign freely and without pressure. I said people who were present more than one in a setting that cannot be characterized as coercive. A family dinner with a signing after dessert. Marcus looked up from across the table. Are we going? I looked at the work bag by the door. Inside it sat documents that could protect my father from creditors, from state recovery, from his own son. Documents that would have cost Raymond $200 in an afternoon to create a decade ago. We are going. I did not want a stage for conflict. I needed a setting for a legal proceeding. That Ethan would attempt to redirect it into a confrontation was predictable. I just needed the signatures before that happened. Here is what more than a decade in elder law teaches you. Families do not collapse at once. They develop fractures over time under the pressure of conversations that kept getting postponed. Wills, directives, powers of attorney. These documents feel cold until you understand what their absence actually costs. They are not paperwork. They are protection shaped like paper. If you are watching this and you have not made yours, pause here. Write yourself a note. Then come back. Christmas morning, Marcus drove. I sat with the work bag on my lap, organized and ready. Inside, the finalized durable power of attorney, Raymond's healthcare directive, the irrevocable trust for the Lancaster property, a restructured household budget that cleared the co-signed loan within 20 months, and printed copies of Raymond's credit card statements, annotated, each Harrisburg charge flagged. I called Vera from the passenger seat. Is Ethan already there? He got there an hour ago. He and your mother have been in the kitchen with the door mostly closed. Your mother looks tense. Tense about what? About all of it. About you, I think. Marcus glanced over. She is going to say something at the table. I know. Which is why every document in this bag has 3 signature lines. We turned onto the familiar street at 4:30. Sandra had put a wreath on the door with a red satin ribbon. An effort at ordinary. I stepped out and looked at the house. Same gray brick, same cracked front step, same bare flower bed. The hallway closet was open when we walked in. Through it I could see the canvas duffel, pushed to the back behind the coats, and an umbrella stand. Still there. Untouched across all these years. Nobody had moved it. Nobody had discarded it. It sat in the back of the closet the way things do when families do not know what to do with what they cannot quite name. I picked up my work bag and walked inside. The table seated 8 if everyone stayed close. Sandra had set all 8 places. Raymond at the head, wearing a pressed flannel and a pleasant expression. Sandra to his right, moving between the kitchen and the table with nervous efficiency. Ethan and his girlfriend across from me and Marcus. Vera and Phil at the far end. Her daughter was driving up from Baltimore and would arrive before dessert. 7 people: a roasted chicken, roasted vegetables, mashed potatoes, green beans with almonds from a recipe Sandra had used every December for 20 years. Canned cranberry sauce, firm enough to hold the shape of the container. The surface held. Ethan's girlfriend talked about a design conference she had attended in the fall. Phil asked Marcus about a documentary series he had been watching. Sandra refilled water glasses continuously. Raymond ate slowly and smiled around the table. He called Vera by her correct name. He called Ethan champ. He called me ma'am. More chicken, ma'am? Sure, Dad. He did not notice the exchange. He did not notice that I had answered to it. Ethan watched me across the table the way someone watches the weather when they know they left their windows open. Every movement I made, he tracked. His girlfriend, to her credit, kept things light and seemed genuinely unaware of the undertow. Under the table, my work bag rested against my chair leg. I had positioned it on my right side, close to my hand. 12 years of habit. Ethan interrupted halfway through the meal. Cutting across a story Phil was telling. Well, this is interesting, he said, setting down his fork. You finally show up after 5 years and it is to sort through paperwork. I sliced my chicken. Better late than never. That is what I keep telling clients who waited too long to get their documents in order. Vera placed her hand over her mouth briefly. Phil leaned back. Ethan's girlfriend looked between us, sensing something she had not been briefed on. Everything is fine, Sandra said, louder than necessary. Who wants more potatoes? The cranberry sauce sat in the center of the table, unserved. My work bag was against my chair. We cleared the main course and were halfway through dessert when Ethan said the thing that stopped all side conversation. He set his wine glass down with more force than intended. All right, I am going to say what nobody is pretending not to think. Ethan. Sandra's voice was a warning flag. He looked at me across the table. Celeste walked away from this family. 5 years. Dad gets sick and she does not come. Mom had to go through a third party just to reach her. And now she shows up with a bag full of legal files, starts canceling account access, and acts like she is running the situation. Marcus placed his hand on my knee beneath the table. Quiet and steady. Ethan's girlfriend set her fork down very carefully. Ethan was not finished. You abandoned us. And now you want to return as the responsible one? You are not here to help. You are here because there is finally something worth showing up for. He was shaking. His voice was louder than he intended. His face carried the particular flush of someone who knows they are guilty and has decided that escalation is the better strategy. The table went completely silent. The kind of silence where you can hear the heating system click on. Where the sound of a fork settling against a plate 3 seats away is audible. Raymond looked around the room. His expression clouded with distress he could not name. What is happening? He said, soft and confused. I do not like it when everyone is upset. I looked at my father. The man who had handed me a canvas bag and called it an opportunity. The man who could no longer recall my name but still remembered that conflict made him uncomfortable. I folded my napkin and set it beside my plate. I pushed back my chair and stood. Give me one moment. I walked to the hallway, retrieved my work bag, returned to the dining room, and placed it on the table beside the cranberry sauce. I did not raise my voice. There was no need. I want to correct a few things, I said. The voice I use in depositions when opposing counsel begins performing. And then I am going to show you exactly why I came. I looked at Ethan. I looked at Sandra. Vera gave me the smallest nod. I did not leave this family. I was handed a bag and told to go build something. I took that instruction seriously. I do not think anyone expected me to actually succeed at it. Raymond stared at his plate. Ethan's girlfriend was very still. Phil had his arms folded. Second, I did not cancel your access, Ethan. I canceled access to your father's account because your father has Alzheimer's and can no longer give legal consent for account sharing. I opened the work bag, removed the printed statements, and laid them between the green beans and the breadbasket. Anthropology. Williams-Sonoma. Restaurant delivery apps 4 to 7 times a week. A wine subscription. A Pilates membership in the Harrisburg Arts District. All from your location, Ethan. None of it for groceries. None of it for Dad. Ethan's color drained in stages, like something being slowly diluted. That is not, I was going to replace it. Under the Pennsylvania Older Adults Protective Services Act and the relevant financial exploitation statute, what has been happening has a legal designation. I have handled over 100 cases that started with the same explanation. I was going to pay it back. Ethan's girlfriend pushed her chair back 3 inches. A small movement. The meaning was enormous. What is she talking about? She said to him quietly. She is taking one statement out of context. I have every statement. Every date, every amount. Vera exhaled slowly. Phil shook his head once. I placed my hands flat on the table. Even and measured. The quieter I spoke, the more clearly it landed. You called and told me to fix it. That you are the lawyer and I should handle it. Those were your words. So I did. I fixed it. I reached into the bag and removed the document folder. Color-coded tabs, a system I had been refining for a decade. Sandra. I placed the folder on the table. In the same spot where, years ago, Raymond had set a worn canvas bag in front of a plate of reheated chicken. I have prepared the documents your parents should have had years ago. I spread them like cards dealt in order. Durable power of attorney. This authorizes you to make financial and legal decisions for Dad now that he cannot safely make them alone. You are the primary agent. I am listed as secondary. A backup only if something happens to you. I moved to the next sheet. Healthcare directive. Based on the conversation we had last weekend, this reflects Dad's documented medical preferences. Resuscitation, end-of-life care, mechanical support, all legally recorded. The next one. Irrevocable trust. I paused and let the term settle. This trust holds title to the Lancaster house. It removes the property from countable assets for Medicaid purposes. If your father ever needs residential memory care, the state cannot recover against this house. Sandra pressed her hand over her mouth. The same gesture she had made years ago when Raymond handed Ethan an envelope in the backyard. But this time there was no celebration in it. And a restructured repayment plan. 18 months to clear the co-signed loan at reduced monthly installments. I closed the bag. All of this is pro bono. Because despite everything, he is still my father. And someone in this family had to plan ahead. Vera stood up. I will sign as a witness. Phil nodded. Same. Sandra looked at the documents. At the trust. At the particular shape of the irony. Her daughter, the one who had received nothing, building a legal structure to protect the parents who had decided she needed nothing. She picked up the pen I had placed beside the folder. Her hand was unsteady, but she signed. After the signing, after Vera and Phil witnessed and dated their lines, after Ethan's girlfriend left quietly through the front door, after Raymond asked whether there was any apple crumble, Sandra found me in the kitchen. I was washing the serving dishes. An old habit from childhood. Some things persist through years of silence. Celeste. I turned off the faucet. I convinced myself you did not need us. Her voice had nothing left to perform with. It was stripped and small. Because it was simpler than admitting I made the wrong choice. I dried my hands, folded the towel, set it on the counter. I was not trying to make things hard for you, she said. I was trying to give Ethan a foundation. I thought if we gave him enough, he would find his way. And I thought you would be fine regardless. I am fine, Mom. But not because of anything you did. Despite it. She came apart quietly then. Not dramatically. The way a structure finally gives after years of stress accumulation. She pressed her hands to the counter and lowered her head and made a sound that was somewhere between grief and relief. She did not say she was sorry. She said she had made the wrong choice, and that was the closest she had ever come to seeing me the way I actually was. I did not hold her. I was not there yet. But I did not leave the kitchen either. Through the window I could see Ethan on the front steps, sitting alone, arms wrapped around his knees. The streetlight overhead caught his face at an angle. He was talking quietly, maybe to himself, maybe just letting something out. I could barely make out the words through the glass. I was terrified of being nothing if the money ran out. One sentence. Quiet enough to miss. True enough to land hard. Ethan had caused damage. He had also been shaped by the same family that had shaped me, just from the opposite side. Too much provision had left him just as unprepared as too little had left me. I did not go to him. There are conversations that need more time before they are ready. 3 weeks later, the documents were recorded with Lancaster County. Raymond had a durable power of attorney and a healthcare directive. The house on the familiar street was titled in the irrevocable trust, protected from Medicaid estate recovery. Community Capital accepted the restructured repayment plan. Ethan's access to Raymond's accounts was permanently closed. The $31,000 in unauthorized charges sat in a secure file I kept locked. I did not report him. Not because he was my brother. Because Raymond, even the version who could no longer remember my name, would not have wanted that. Ethan sent a payment transfer 3 weeks after Christmas. $3,500. First installment. The memo field contained a single word. Sorry. Lowercase, no punctuation. The smallest acknowledgement I had ever received from him. But it came as a number, not a sentence. And numbers, as it turned out, were what Ethan understood most reliably. Sandra called every Thursday evening at 7. We did not relitigate the past. We talked about Raymond's medication adjustments. His good days, when he remembered the name of a dog they had briefly owned in 2001. His harder days, when he tried to leave the house before dawn to get to an office he had retired from years ago. I answered every call. Not because everything had been resolved. Because answering the phone was the boundary I had drawn. I will serve as your estate planner and your father's legal advocate. I will not pretend the canvas bag never happened. Sandra did not push. For the first time, she respected a line I had placed. That is not forgiveness. But it is movement. January, Raymond's birthday, 62. Marcus and I drove to Lancaster. I brought a carrot cake from the Germantown bakery. Raymond did not know that the same bakery had made our wedding cake. He did not remember the wedding. But he remembered that carrot cake was his favorite because certain things live below the level of memory. After dinner I sat with him in the den. The television off. Sandra in the kitchen putting away leftovers. Raymond reached across and took my hand. His grip was warm and firm, more present than I expected. Cedar and flannel and the amber light from the side table lamp. He looked at me. You turned out well, kid. Clear. No searching. He saw me and he knew. And then it passed. His gaze moved to the window and he was elsewhere again. But his hand remained in mine, warm and steady, even as the man behind it retreated to wherever he goes when the present becomes too much to hold. Driving home, Marcus reached across and rested his hand on my shoulder briefly. The highway was dark and flat. Pennsylvania spread out in every direction, quiet, patient, indifferent in the way that landscape can sometimes feel like relief. I used to believe the canvas bag was punishment. An assessment from a father who had decided I was not worth investing in. But maybe it was the most honest thing Raymond ever gave me. An empty container and the unspoken permission to fill it on my own terms. That is my story. 16 years. One canvas bag. And a folder of documents that held a family together when everything else had come apart. If you have ever been the one who built everything from nothing and then went back to hold up the people who gave you nothing to begin with, you already know this feeling. Leave a comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.